really, I think the way in which we see money, each person's not the same, right? Like
Yeah.
we're all so extremely unique, and we think, there's no one right answer for managing our money based on how we want to live in our lifestyle and everything else. So just very hypothetical, if someone comes to you, part of them is really concerned about the debt they've accumulated, let's say a lot, but let's say also the very compulsive buyer, like they see purchasing whatever it may be as something that makes them feel good, inside, like fills an emotional gap or something like that, right?
Mm. And
So
there's a lot of that as well in the world.
yeah,
We talk about
absolutely.
emotional spending, don't we? Emotional eating, emotional spending.
hmm
Yeah, a
and
lot of people do that.
and if
I've done it myself. So
no, for sure. And really, like, I'm not trying to berate that way of doing things in any means. However, like, it's a weird sort of dichotomy if someone's going to you and the part of them's like, okay, I really want to get out of debt, but as soon as I get off my call with you, I'm going to go and purchase like 10 things, right?
yeah.
So I mean, when you work with people and really in the way in which you help guide them with their finances, debt, expenses, everything else, is there a part of you that maybe helps understand them individually like that and try to keep them really like in rein or sort of accountable for tracking that they stay on the right path? Or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, there's a couple of things here, I think. So first of all is you've really picked up on the emotional side of money, haven't you? This kind of, emotional spending. So what I tend to do is I talk to them about the debt cycle and talk to them about their spending and the fact that it's emotional spending, and try and get them to look back at, when they started doing this, what was happening in their lives. Is there something that triggers them? If they're saying, I just want to go off and buy this, like, why do you want to buy that? How is that going to make you feel? And, and then I get them to look at maybe I like to get them to look at their previous expenditure. So to track their expenditure, so maybe look at the expenditure for the last month and look at everything and say, okay, what did you spend? What was a need? So, if you're spending money on your rent or your mortgage or your gas bill, that's a need. And what was it that was a want? That was like discretionary expenditure. And I'm not one of these people that's, you've got to be really frugal, you've got to scrimp and save, everything's about the future. I try with my clients to get them to, be able to spend money on things they really, really want, to have a good time now, knowing that they're putting away enough for the future. So when I get them to look at their spending, I get them to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how much joy or how much pleasure that brought them. In a kind of Marie Kondo kind of way. And that's what Marie Kondo does, doesn't it? This is his jumper, how do you rate it? Are you going to keep it? Does it bring you much joy? If not, why have you got it? Why is it taking up space and energy in your home? We're going to, give it to someone else who will love it more. And I try and get my clients to do that. They're spending, and it works really well actually, because sometimes they'll go through and they'll say, "Oh, that was a 2. I bought something that was a 2. It didn't bring me any joy." I mean, I've even had someone say once, which actually it was a -1 or something, because not only did it not give them joy, they never used it. It just sat in a cupboard or something for a couple of weeks. But he said it actually had a negative impact because exactly what you're saying, it pushed them further into debt. So that exercise is actually quite powerful because it gets people to actually think about their spending and is it aligned with their values? Is it aligned with the things that they value and the things that bring them joy or bring them pleasure? And if it's a 9, then it's kind of like, okay, that's great. And so what I try and do with my clients is get them to come up with, rather than a really strict budget, because, a bit like strict diets, I don't think strict budgets work. I kind of talk about having a conscious spending plan where you do have some money allocated to whether, I talk about having money in pots, different pots for different things. So you'll have your living costs in one pot, and you might have, well, I, for example, have a travel pot because I love to travel. I've just told you before I'm going to Portugal on Wednesday. You might have a clothes pot. You might have a fun pot. So, you've got to, and then you allocate yourself a bit of money in your fun pot, even if you're paying debt, because I just don't think people can sustain paying off debt without having a little bit of fun. Okay, you're going to have less money in that fun pot than if you weren't in debt, but you've got to have something to look forward to keep yourself going.